Well, that's our next conversation this morning, as Mark already highlighted to us the other time. The U.S. and Israel conducted a military strike on Iran, and the latest operation and details and objectives are already playing out. Captain Bish Johnson joins us this morning. He's a former U.S. Army personnel. He's a national security and defense strategist. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Captain.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Did this come to you as a surprise?
No, not at all. If you have been following this president, and I have been very, very particular on President Trump 2.0 as against President Trump 1.0. If you have been following this president, you know that this president is a president that will be saying one thing. He is planning a different thing behind the scenes, and then next thing you know, boom, he has launched that thing that he is planning. I knew it as they were going through that diplomacy, and for him to have moved that amount of forces, if I tell you what it costs to move an aircraft carrier from the United States and position it around Iran just on a daily basis, no government will do that if they are not serious about what they are trying to do. And so with that amount of force that was positioned in the Middle East, what happened on Saturday was not a surprise to me.
The consequences are still playing out, there is no doubt about it. But there is a question a number of people have asked over time, Captain, and that's the fact that since this Trump 2.0, as you put it, has been playing out, the United Nations has said little or not much to curtail anything. The U.S. decided to pull out of some international organizations, and nothing has happened. But now, with this attack, even in the invasion of that visit they paid to, I think it was Venezuela, it would seem like not much was heard from the United Nations or from any world leader to say why. And now this is happening. What are the consequences of that for international peace?
None at all. Consequences, as far as I am concerned, the consequences are only for poor countries like Nigeria and African countries. Some of these great powers, there are no consequences for them. You saw what happened and what is still playing out in Ukraine. What are the consequences for Putin and Russia? None. And you saw what is happening and what happened in Gaza. What are the consequences for Netanyahu and Israel? Zero. You see, I am not a fan of the United Nations. The United Nations, as far as I'm concerned, is the toothless bulldog. United Nations, America accounts for 25% of United Nations annual budget. And so you know that whoever plays the pipe dictates the tone. And the United Nations, as far as I am concerned, is the most undemocratic institution on the face of the planet. Yet they advance for democracy all over the world. This is an institution where the vote of one nation overrides the vote of all the countries of the world put together. And so how democratic is such an institution? I don't take the United Nations seriously, and I don't expect the United Nations to be able to do anything because they have done nothing. Look at Sudan. Look at what is happening in Sudan. Look at what is happening in DRC Congo. Look at what is happening in Ukraine. Look at what happened in Gaza. So the United Nations, as far as I am concerned, is useless and has not been able to solve any problem. And even Donald Trump himself knows that because the day he inaugurated his peace board, he mentioned it that those international institutions have not been able to provide the peace for which they were established to do, which was the reason why he was setting up his peace board.
So what would be your counsel to Nigeria? What should be the position of Nigeria in all of this? I know, of course, I'm sure you are also aware, the Nigerian government has put out a statement asking for peace, in the world as a result of this. Of course, we know that the Iran has begun to take its own action as well, and perhaps maybe one or two allies here and there may be doing a thing or two as well. But what should, in your opinion, what are the consequences for Nigeria? Do you think Nigeria has a reason to take a position on this matter? And if we would, what should it be?
Well, Nigeria has always has a position, time immemorial. And Nigerian position has been that Nigeria is a non-allied nation, and that Africa has been the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. I have been an advocate for that. I have said consistently in all my articles and all my positions that Nigeria should remain so. Nigeria should take what is called the strategic neutrality and sometimes strategic ambiguity in some of all these flashpoint issues in the world. Because we have our own problems to deal with here in Nigeria. And the solution to our problems here in Nigeria do not lie in one block. The solutions to our problems in Nigeria, we can seek them from several of all these blocks. And so if we don't align ourselves with any block, it gives us the wiggle room to be able to seek solutions from those blocks when necessary. So I will advise Nigeria to continue to maintain that position of neutrality or position of strategic ambiguity and continue to remain non-allied nation and continue to make Africa the centerpiece of its foreign policy. That is my position, and that will be my recommendation to Nigeria.
Well, you have had very strong words for the United Nations, and some people will say, well, the United Nations can only do as much as it is empowered to do. We do know the structure of the United Nations, and we do know that the powerful countries that hold veto power, one of them is very involved in this new, I'm looking for the right word, I want to say strike. My mouth is saying onslaught on Iran, because this has been a preemptive strike. That's what they have called it, not necessitated by any immediate threat. It just came out of the blues, even though some people say, well, intelligence forces had been looking before now to see how they could, carry out a pretty neat operation in Iran. But it has now kept that region in a place of great uncertainty, because we saw how Iran fired back. Couldn't really hit a lot of targets, but we saw the strike on Qatar, on Dubai, on Bahrain, a number of other U.S. allies within that particular region. What do you think this spells? Because some people say whether or not Nigeria remains non-allied, whether we try to bury our head in the sand, there are elements here that also affect us. We heard about a protest, a Shiite protest happening in some parts of the north, in a particular area, and even though we understand that might be under control, but it does raise concerns about how people now perceive the United States and Israel, because they haven't quite followed any known rule in terms of their justification for the attack on Iran. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you had listened to Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, the statement that he made, I believe it was some time ago in Europe, where he said, if you are not on the table, you will become the menu. And so, look, Nigeria, I have consistently said that this country has the potential to be a great power. I don't see the reason why we are not the China of Africa. We ought to be the China of Africa. What is happening in the world now is not going to change anytime soon. This is an era of great power flexing muscle, and they are not going to stop. They will continue to flex muscle to see who flexes more muscle than the other. And so what we need to do as a nation is that we have to find a way to get a seat on the table so that we are not the menu. And the way we achieve it is to build our economy, a very robust economy, empower our people. Let me tell you something. You see, the economic revolution that you're seeing taking place in China today, the foundation was laid in 1978 when their leader, Deng Xiaoping, was in charge. They carried out a lot of reforms. Those reforms came with the pains, but they endured those pains. And today the Chinese people are witnessing over 4 decades of continuous economic prosperity. And that's what Nigeria needs to do. The problem we have had in this country is that no generation of leadership in this country had been willing and able to make the sacrifices so that the future generations can benefit. We have always kicked the can down the road. We've always borrowed and borrowed so that we can satisfy our insatiable wants, not even needs, at the expense of the future generation. So if we don't want to be the many, we have to take a seat on the table, and the way we achieve it is to grow our economy, strengthen our economy, and build a robust military. I am someone that believes that you must have a very powerful military if you are going to be an economic might, so that you will be able to protect and defend that economy. That is what Nigeria ought to do. Well, if we don't live in isolation, unfortunately. What happens in other places will affect us. But that does not mean that we should always become meddlesome interlopers in issues that do not have direct impact to our own survival and existence. Nigeria should focus on addressing its own internal issues, such as insecurity, such as lack of infrastructural deficit, such as massive unemployment, inflation, all those things. We should work on them and maintain strategic neutrality or even strategic ambiguity.
Indeed, well, there will be questions about how Nigeria intends to manage the short-term fallout of this new war between Iran, U.S. and Israel, because we do know that energy prices might be affected as a result of this, and it clearly will have effect on the price that Nigerians pay for fuel as well as electricity. But we certainly will keep tabs on the developments in the Middle East, and we certainly will also be requiring your diligence on this particular matter, Captain Bish Johnson. But we have to thank you very much for sharing your immediate thoughts with us. Did you want to quickly say something?
Just one second. From what we are seeing today has gone up to $100 from what I understand this morning, and that is good for us. So in that case, now we'll be able to meet our budget benchmark of $60-something a barrel. So sometimes it's not a bad thing for countries like us when this kind of things are happening. We just have to be able to know how to manage them.
Indeed, we're looking forward to how the Nigerian government will manage it, because don't forget also that we now also pay the full price of the refined products that come from the price of crude oil. So we'll see how that eventually pans out in Nigeria. But we have to thank you so much for speaking with us. Captain Bish Johnson is an ex-U.S. Army personnel and also a national security and defense strategist. Well, that's all we have for you on the program this Monday morning. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Please join us at 10 a.m. for the Media Parley with the FCT Minister, Amaokpe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makine. Enjoy the rest of your day.